Today's episode is brought to you by Booing at Live Events.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow.
Hey.
And joining us today, the one and only Iplaigames. What's up, buddy?
What's up? Good to be back. I feel like it's been a long time since I've been in the show.
It's been a while, though. I think
Weeks. At least weeks.
I think you might be the most frequent guest on HMP Flagship.
Yes.
The only other person that
highest
would be
frequency
close
guest.
would be Hex, maybe. But I think he's been like 3 or 4 times.
Oh, you just let me know. I'll
he-
come back some more if it turns out.
He has his own special segment we do only when he's here, though. So,
That's true.
he's probably number one in our hearts if I'm not lying about it. But you're around too much for that. You know what I mean? Like you're like just one of the family. I like game with you 5 nights a week. It feels like everything like that. So it's just like I'm just talking Overwatch League when I play. It's every day of the week.
Yeah, just forget that I'm recording. I'll just sit back.
I probably will at least 3 times during the episode. For
Yes. Well, thank you for coming back, iPlay, and joining us for this awesome week of Overwatch League play. We had a maybe not the most interesting from the games played, but definitely a historic week from the league perspective. But we'll be talking about that in just a bit. Before we jump in, do a little bit of housekeeping here. Around the Payload, everyone's favorite show, coming back tomorrow. I've got some guests lined up, and all things going according to plan. We will be recording live at 7 Eastern on Wednesday, the 1st of May. So yes, go ahead and do it. It's gonna be May when the next Around the Payload happens. 7 Eastern.
Boo.
You know what? I'm going to allow that booing because we'll be talking about that.
It's on purpose.
Yes, I'm sure that was on purpose and not just because it deserved to be booed. But things that don't deserve to be booed, Blackwatch Report, of course, always, every week, keeps on grinding with your contenders and all things non-Overwatch League that are still competitive Overwatch. Blackwatch Report, make sure to check them out. And last week, we were cursed with a crappy me doing a solo mini-sode for Foul Play, but it actually worked out well timing-wise because going through the episode, there was really not much to talk about from a fantasy perspective. It was, if you have players on the teams that are playing this week, play them. If not, roll the dice.
You think it might have been fortuitous, but you have no idea how poorly all of our fans did as a result of your advice without me or A. Smith there to save them.
I tried to make up things to talk about, and I think I gave.
The usual Blevins, just making things up.
Absolutely. I think I gave a decent enough argument to either fix your or make drastic changes with your team, or to not do that. But it was definitely the best week that it could have happened, but still. Definitely just a mini-sode, not a full Foul Play episode. But we will be back up to full strength this week, which we'll actually be doing right after the show. Again, twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast. But enough housekeeping. Let's talk about what we did last week. iPlay, you want to start? Anything fun and exciting happening for you in the world of Iplaigames?
I've been doing a little bit of Overwatch. I've been doing mostly a lot of Sea of Thieves and the new expansions coming out and stuff. I've been addicted to that game, close to Pirate Legend. So if anyone plays that game, knows out there, they know how I'm feeling right now. Aside from that, I've been playing a little bit of Overwatch, practicing my my usual heroes. Sombra feels really good right now. I've been loving playing her. I've been enjoying Hammond quite a bit. I think he's one of the strongest tanks right now, and I've been really enjoying learning him. I'm not proud of this, but I've been playing a lot of Brigitte too.
Yeah.
I am finally coming to terms with the fact
the
that
dark side.
she's just so strong. And as a DPS player, I feel like it's definitely worth learning her, as weird as that sounds. I'm getting better with my flails. I've been hitting them at long range now, which I wasn't doing before. So that felt good. But yeah, just kind of practicing heroes, staying current. I played a little bit with the workshop a little bit. I don't know if you guys have tried it out at all, but I tried it out a little bit. I didn't get too far. I basically just made all the heroes shiny, specifically McCree. And yeah, that's about it.
I saw a couple of mods. DB, you showed me one that was like a Smash Bros esque mod. I saw like a Hammond golf mod.
Oh
I
yeah.
saw one where Hammond like essentially turns into a diva bomb and explodes or something. It was
Oh, that's
weird.
crazy.
Yeah, it was weird.
Some of them are really crazy, and they're getting like pretty elaborate too. Like I've seen like some of them that are starting to make like RPGs and like RPG elements in the game, so you can actually like buy weapons, buy skills and upgrades. You can like talk to NPCs, which is like an Anna sitting in a corner kind of thing. But it's very, very like on the beginning stages. But I was surprised that only with like a week of it being out on PTR, we were already getting like these crazy things.
You guys didn't even mention the one workshop game mode that's probably good, and that's gun game. That's easily.
Oh,
They
yeah.
made gun game.
Of course, they made gun
Oh,
game. Yeah, 100%.
I'm back in, boys.
Actually,
I'm
number
back
one is
in.
really good.
I love gun game.
The moment I competitively stop caring about this game, I will go all in on the gun game. But it's honestly, gun game is interesting to me because that's where I got my stance, and you're very familiar with this stance, Blevins. I'm sure you remember me talking about it, where I hate everything in the arcade because it makes me worse at the actual base game itself. And it's probably my own shortcoming that makes this true, but just the way you play differently, right? Like you'd normally never run face first into this room when you're a Mercy with your pistol out, right? But if you're playing Overwatch gun game, you don't really have a choice. It becomes the right thing to do. So it messes with my instincts and what my positioning is and a lot of things like that. So in Counter-Strike, where obviously gun game got its creation and got started, I actually quit caring even remotely about Counter-Strike and just went into gun game because I'm like, I don't actually like the base game that much. Gun game is just way better. I'm just going to do that. So it's like the one game mode when I heard about it where I'm like, oh, shoot, I might actually not hate that they made this thing. But overall, I've been pretty vocally against the workshop because it just feels like, hey, don't pay attention to the fact that ranked isn't fun. We diverted dev resources to make this. So anyway, but we're an esports podcast. We're not going to go too far down that rabbit hole in particular.
You guys know what hero is the last one for gun game, or at least the one that I saw that I thought was really good?
Torbjorn Hammer.
Torbjorn Hammer. That's how you gotta win, dude.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
Yeah, super good. For what I've seen clips of it though, I feel like it needs to go down the line of like you start with your DPS heroes, and then you do your tank heroes, and then you do your support heroes, and like I think they need that kind of transition. And it looked a little all over the place. Now, granted, I only saw like some spotty clips of it and like a couple YouTube videos or whatever. But yeah, I think there's some improvements and some iterations to be made on it, but that one looks super cool.
Now, do you play does your hero swap, or can you in the workshop can you use whatever
whole hero
you
swaps?
want?
Yeah,
You
every time you
basically
kill somebody, you get a new hero.
Yeah, you dematerialize and rematerialize on the spot. It's like you spawn right there. But it seems more fluid than like a spawn. Like I'm not sure your character model stops. I think you just
it's
transition into the new hero. Yeah. But I do think you like gain your life back. So I think if you were like at 5 HP and you get the kill, you come back full HP on Reaper or whatever the next one.
Tactical heal.
Now, can you? I guess I just don't know enough about the workshop, and we don't need to talk about it. But I want to talk about it because we already are.
It's a huge addition to the game that just hit.
Yeah, I mean, can you actually make could I make a mode where Reaper has Mercy's gun? Like, could you do that where everything about Reaper is the same except the gun is different?
So as far as I know, right now you can't really give heroes like other hero abilities. From what I've seen, you can't like swap animations or you can't like recreate maps. You have to use the maps that are given to you. But that being said, with the amount of conditionals and options that they give you, people have gotten really creative And for example, I saw one guy that made a roadhog that shoots Torbjorns that become homing missiles.
Right click fires a Torbjorn that will follow the target around. And also they were homing missiles,
Torbjorn.
so you don't have to see the target. Like, you just got to right click and Torbjorn is launching out of your gun going towards an enemy. Your crosshair doesn't even need to be on somebody.
So
but yeah, I saw that.
It's very versatile. So I don't think you can like outright swap, like now you have Mercy's gun and Reaper looks like he has Mercy's gun, but you could probably recreate the cadence and the damage of Mercy's gun and put it on Reaper kind of thing. So it's a little limited right now, but you can find workarounds for a lot of things.
I mean, now that I know that that's possible, I'm definitely going to make a roadhog gun that shoots nothing but bobs out of for every pellet. It's just a new bob.
Why not Bastion?
Because Bob is cooler than Bastion.
No, a Bastion that in turret mode fires out bobs. You got a clip size of 200 bobs. Like, you're really cutting down the grand total number of bobs that cannot do anything for you.
Because
keep in mind, all 200 of them will contest the payload just fine.
I have a feeling that my CPU will melt if I have 200 bobs.
And at the end of the day, Houston still wouldn't run bunker comp defense, so I guess it just doesn't. Well, that was my attempt to segue us back into esports and Overwatch League. So hopefully it works.
So what are the chances? I didn't even think about talking about this, but in regards to competitive and regards maybe not necessarily to specifically Overwatch League right now, but what are the chances that we see like a custom map, a custom game mode made in the workshop that ends up being in competitive? Iplay, do you have any thoughts on that?
I see that as a real possibility, especially if the workshop gets a little bit more iteration on it and hopefully the ability to actually create maps from it. Maybe not even like upload your own skins or anything crazy like that, but at least reuse the assets, right? Like just take a building from Overwatch that's already made and like put it wherever you want, or a street or whatever. At that point, it would become like a really real possibility. Right now, I think that with what we have, there's a lot of utility to change rules. If people really wanted to, they could just recreate a competitive mode where like Brigitte is slightly different hero, right? Or you can rebalance Brigitte yourself and kind of like start play testing like that. So it's a very powerful tool, at least for the community to take matters into their own hands. It won't be in competitive right away, but it could be a good way to show Blizzard like, hey, this is what we really like, and this is how we like playing the game, and you get to modify it yourself. I know that some people have already made like improved scrim modes, for example. So if you're scrimming, for example, you know, one of the biggest things is when you're carrying the payload and one team stops you before the end of the map. If the other team gets there, you don't get to actually finish the map, right? You have to like restart the scrim and like change defenders and attackers to play the whole map. So they changed that rule. So you have to play the whole map regardless of where your team stops. But you still get the marker of where you left the payload. So you can still kind of like compare like, how far did we get and stuff. So they've already done iterations to modes like that. So I think it's very promising.
DB, any thoughts on the workshop and its implications to competitive?
Probably just won't have any, right? Because you're pretty limited. It's hard to make a game mode when you're limited to the maps, like Iplay was talking about. But I love, and I hadn't heard about the improved scrim mode yet. I think anything you can do that helps the players, I think it'll help potentially. You know, there's a lot of like warm-ups and things like that I think you could design in workshop that might be really useful for your competitive player.
Aim practice for sure.
Aim practice. You can keep people out of third-party programs, let them do it right in Overwatch, which I think will help in the long run. I've tried using like Aim Hero and things like that, and it's jarring to go. I mean, the principles are the same, and it does help, but I think it's jarring to leave the engine and leave the look and the feel of the game, and it definitely would be better to have something like that kind of built into workshop. So I think it might be a tool for the competitive community that they might use, but I don't think we're going to see it. I don't think it's likely we see a new game mode developed unless they do add map a map editor
Yeah.
or something along those lines. But maybe it can help with proof of concept stuff. Maybe something gets a lot of traction in the community, and instead of Jane throwing up a tournament where he tries to do it, or build it into the game a little bit, show what it would look like, feel like to actually do, and then maybe you can get Blizzard's attention a little bit. So I can't rule it out, but I don't. To me, this is all. This is Blizzard's. What was the phrasing I liked? It was their love letter to the casuals, right? And
Yeah.
This is for them, and that's great. But let's fix the game.
To be fair though, new game modes have come out. They're just very limited, and they haven't had time to really iterate on them, so they look kind of janky a little bit. But Battle Royale Overwatch is a thing. It's this huge Winston bubble the size of the map that just kind of slowly starts shrinking, and if you touch it, you die. And obviously, Overwatch is not balanced for that kind of mode. It's kind of a mess, but you can rebalance that, right? And eventually, I think that you could get to a point where hey, Battle Royale Overwatch is a thing. You play it in, I don't know, Castillo or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, if something gets big, for example, auto chests for Dota, where it's got its own. If something comes out of it that makes that big of a splash, that's what it's going to take to get Blizzard's attention. Where it's getting individual attention, and it's forget Overwatch, except for you need to download and install it to be able to play this, right? When those are the headlines that are coming out, I think that might grab Blizzard's attention.
Right.
And I think they might have learned their lesson when Dota spawned out of their custom game lobbies in Warcraft 3. And if they see something with that potential, I expect them to grab it and to control it for the future instead of allow it to go to Activision or not Activision, but because that's them. Yeah. Valve, and allow Valve to pick it up and make the most money off of it, or allow Riot Games to spring up as a competitor out of nowhere. They'll probably be smarter about that. So maybe, but it's up to the community to make something that good.
Yeah.
And this is the last thing I'm going to say about this, I promise. But props to Jeff Kaplan and the team for actually introducing this tool into the community, because I think that they actually know the potential of these tools. Like you said, Dota spawning from Warcraft 3. They know where that can lead. And Kaplan has been vocal about this from the beginning. He's wanted a map editor in Overwatch from the beginning, because when you're working inside Blizzard, it doesn't matter how much passion for the game you have. You have investors and owners behind you being like, dude, whatever you do, we need it to make money, right? So you're always doing something in kind of the name of profit. But when you crowdsource that to your community, nobody there is doing it for money or anything like that. They're just doing it because they want to play a game that is fun. And suddenly you outsource a little bit of the development into the hands of the people who are going to be using it, which I think is one of the most awesome things. And that's why games like Dota came about, right? Because people were just Warcraft 3 is awesome, but what would be more awesome than Warcraft 3? And that spawned.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about this before Overwatch came out. We were talking about they're using their own game engine. Oh, they can release a map editor or a custom game mode maker before Overwatch was even released. It's now that's finally happened. I do hope that if something big like Auto Chess or Dota comes out of Overwatch, that Blizzard, I don't know, I do not have faith that they would actually take that over and own it, because they blundered so badly with Dota, letting that go, and then they made a clone of it 15 or whatever years later in Heroes of the Storm. The good thing about them releasing the workshop is think about how many things that Blizzard makes that are just absolutely amazing and crazy good and fun that never see the light of day because it has to have that extra level of Blizzard polish on it. I'm sure they've made so many things that are just great and would be amazing. We would all be super happy about. But there's the chance that they're not, or they're rough around the edges and they don't have time for them. Yeah, just give that to us and let us make it, because we're the fans will put out stuff that's not polished and then work on it while it's they'll fly the ship they'll fix the plane while they're flying it. So, all right. That was way more time than I thought we were going to talk about the workshop, but I'm fine with it. It's a big thing. Let's formally segue into
It's news.
We do have a couple of pieces of news this week. We have gotten the details for the 2019 Overwatch World Cup. They're doing basically the same sort of format that they did last year with the community lead, the GM, and the teams, obviously. I believe the only difference really is that the GM is now also going to be a committee-style choice like the community lead was last year. And they also added some details about the tournament structure before the actual World Cup at BlizzCon. So
should we start using the hashtag DB4GM?
Yes.
Now we should just. So now is when we start. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes. I did it last. I ran last year. I'm almost thinking about pulling the Seinfeld. I choose not to run. We'll see. I haven't decided yet, but
I just want to pick Raucous again and watch everybody get mad.
Well, I think as long as you don't pick Zachary, he'll be doing better than last year.
We'll advance through the first round. That's my promise.
Yeah.
I shouldn't make a promise.
No, that's what a campaign is about. It's about making promises. It's not about fulfilling and keeping those promises.
Right. Gold medal.
Yeah.
Gold
medal guaranteed. But yeah, so we also
hold
have
on. DB for GM has two meanings then. DB for general manager and DB for gold medal.
There.
This is the best hashtag we've ever come up with. First of all, so start using it. Everybody.
It's not specific to you. The DB part is, but the GM, gold medal, and general manager could apply for everybody. But we came up with the first. Anyone who puts something for GM is directly stealing from High Noon Podcast.
They're voting for me, basically.
Yeah,
copyrighted.
Yep. Blizzard, if you're listening, if anyone puts that tweet, just count that as a vote for Deathblow.
Kappa rated, I think, is the correct terminology there.
Yes, it's Kappa. That's the best hashtag we've ever came up with.
I'm on fire right now.
You know what? I'm just gonna step back. You run the show today. I don't need to be here anymore. But we did get the dates for BlizzCon. It's the same weekend-ish. I guess it's technically like a day before. It's right at the beginning of November. So, and actually the tickets go on sale very soon. All the details, I'll post a link in the description. I don't have them up because I am dumb. Last piece of news we have here is London Spitfire have added the player Quartermain. Deathblow, I know you did a little bit of research on this.
It's like Quatermain, by the way. There's no R there. It's like Quatermain. I'm fairly certain of it.
There's only one R. Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't like it, but here we are. It's Quartermain for forever. But yeah, this is
Quartermain from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
This is a player from the Korean scene that's kind of fallen off the map a little bit. The last record I have for him as being on a team was on Samsung Morningstar's Black, but that was back in July, I think, 2018. So he's been dormant for a little while. He was also on like a lot of the B teams in his past, right? And maybe they weren't B teams, but in my mind they were always B teams. And that is Kongdu Uncia, not Panthera.
Right.
And then Africa Freaks, red, not blue.
So, okay.
Not blue.
So yeah, the B teams.
Right. So at least in my mind, those were always the B teams for those organizations, and that's where he's been. So clearly, obviously, somebody that kept up with the game a little bit, kept his skills sharp, and somebody I don't know if they remembered. It's a little bit of an odd signing, but again, I think this is another one of those developmental pickups. Somebody they think has a lot of promise. They want to bring into the organization, work with closely, see what they can do to up his game and get him ready to go. But yeah, he is a support player. But other than that, I don't have a lot of information. It's been long enough. I'm not even sure if this is main or flex.
At this point,
I think main support
statistic on what's the percentage of Koreans in the league? Because I feel like it's over 50% at this point.
Yes.
How long do we think it's going to be till it's about 99% of the league?
It's never going to be 99%. You're always going to have your teams that don't want to do it that way. You know, your
AKA
Paris,
France, yeah.
right? Yeah, your Paris.
Most
I
of
don't
the
know.
European teams.
I don't know that Houston was built that way, or if they are just turned out that way, because but they're another one where it's like hard for them to bring in Korean talent into that roster, so they're likely to stay Western for a while. And then you're also going to have teams that are always mixed. But this is a conversation we've kind of had a lot.
Mayhem, too. Like that was like, you know what? Screw it, all Korean roster.
I think over time it's actually gonna maybe skew a little bit less, at least a fewer percentage of full Korean rosters, because the teams that are doing it, split, they're going to just keep bringing players in, and the players are going to be more and more comfortable in a bilingual environment, and the Korean speakers are going to be more and more comfortable coming in Korean. So I think over time we might actually see it shift a little bit back the other direction, but just because the communication abilities across both English and Korean will improve for, and look, we've got Guangzhou Charge players that, that aren't native Korean speakers that are getting even if they're calming in English, I'll guarantee you they're picking up a lot of Korean, and they're gaining a lot of ability to thrive in a multilingual environment. So I don't know, you might actually see it go the other direction, but it's going to always be mostly Koreans, and we've talked about that for a long time now, and it's the top end might be the same, right? Like, I don't necessarily think the best Korean players are inherently better than the best European or NA players, but there's just a lot more in that top tier, that, you know what I mean? In the top level of competition, they feel just a larger number of them because of the culture and everything like that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although, to be fair, I haven't seen a Western Jonak yet. I still gotta see that.
Well, we've not seen a Korean Lynxer either, so I don't know. At least on Widow, he's still the best in the world. I'm claiming it. I'm not backing down. I've been saying it for since before Overwatch League was mentioned as a league. I've been saying that. I'm not backing down now. Not because he's off the stage.
Is not only is there a Korean Lynxer, there's two on NYXL. Pine and Far.
Spider Pine. Get out of here.
Don't you ever say those words again.
Pine is Lynxer if Lynx are positioned horribly.
I'll take that. I will take that. We do have Ednar in the chat, who may or may not be on Around the Payload tomorrow, who said that Quartermain, I'm just calling him Quartermain, I don't care what his name is. Quartermain has played with Bedosen and Birdring before, so that already makes a lot of sense there. The one thing I'll say about the Koreans and the teams being full Korean is I think it's going to depend largely on how, not specifically contenders, but how the path to pro in and of itself actually pans out. I don't think that the way that contenders works right now is necessarily sustainable for the ecosystem that Overwatch League is trying to be. I think as Overwatch League gets settled in, obviously there's a ton of moving parts. We just had our first home game, which we'll be talking about. Once the home games are settled, expansion teams are going to be like few and far between. We're not necessarily getting multiple expansion teams a year. Once it's settled down and not just growing and getting to a point, and it's gotten to that point, then it starts to trickle down into contenders, because right now every team is like, okay, we need to win this season and we need to do next season, and like they're thinking about the next 5 years. I'm sure a lot of the teams are, but like they're like, we can't put all of our eggs in the next 5 years, because we need next year to happen. We need 2 years from now to happen, and it needs to be successful now. Once it's actually the foundation is there, then they start looking, okay, we don't necessarily need to win this year. We need to have a legacy and a dynasty there to actually have a foundation. So I think in the future we'll start seeing way more investment into the path to pro and finding top talent and actually having a farm system that really feeds into Overwatch League, much more like we see in traditional sports, and less like Contenders is just another league that's not Overwatch League, and then we basically pit like the academy teams kind of are affiliated a little bit, but they we've seen a number of teams like wheel and deal and swap with academy teams. I think once that gets settled and how it gets settled is really going to determine what the percentage of Koreans or Americans. Because if the contenders teams are and academy teams are based in the U.S. and are successful, and like it's a very successful thing to do, like it would be in baseball if you're that good. I
Well,
think them being here is going to be key.
scholarships and stuff are starting, right? Like I know
Right.
like some people like Shockmaster from the community. He's going to college right now for with a scholarship, an esports scholarship, and he's playing for the team. I think it's also has to be with a culture thing, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
are we going to embrace that here in America, right? And are
Right.
we going to promote it? Are these schools going to promote it? Because for a lot of these kids that have to put all of this time into esports, they gotta be able to justify that, right? Not only to
Right.
themselves but to their families too. Like, hey, mom,
Mm-hmm.
dad, I'm gonna be a professional esports player, and that's becoming more accepted lately, but it's still like not
Right.
your regular path, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's still kind of like a B side that you cannot take right now. So I don't know. I think that we gotta embrace that before we start seeing less Koreans in the league.
It's the Africa Freaks red of paths to take right now. Not Africa Freaks blue, but soon it will be. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's going to depend. I think the percentage of folks that we see that are Korean or non-Korean is going to depend wildly on how that pans out over the next 5 plus years. So definitely will be interesting to see. But let's move on here and talk about what happened this weekend.
It's tournament talk.
We, of course, had the very first Overwatch League home game, the homestand in Dallas, where Dallas was the home team there. And we saw, we obviously only had 2 days, so a shorter week of matches, but they were definitely doozies, to say the least. We started off on Saturday with London Spitfire beating the Paris Eternal 4-0. Hangzhou Spark beat Chengdu Hunters 3-1. Seoul Dynasty put the beat down on the Houston Outlaws 4-0, and Dallas
When in
Fuel.
doubt, lose with goats.
True. Dallas Fuel in their very first home game, the very first home game for Overwatch League team ever, win 4-0 versus the much booed at the venue Los Angeles Valiant. On Sunday, we saw the Hangzhou Spark eke out a win against Paris Eternal 3-2. Chengdu Hunters beat London Spitfire 3-1. Seoul Dynasty wins 3-2 over LA Valiant. And in the battle for Texas, the Dallas Fuel remain undefeated at home 3-1 over the Houston Outlaws. So, we had the first home game, boys. What were your thoughts about it? How did it play out? What was your view of it? iPlay, we'll start with you.
It was awesome. If this is like any example of how the home games are gonna pan out from here on out, like I'm really excited, especially for the Atlanta one that's coming over here. Woo! Can't wait for that. The excitement was next level. I kind of expected that because I've seen when events or shows are taken to a location where they don't normally happen. And it's insane how thirsty people are, right? Like, oh, we haven't had this. We keep watching on TV, we keep listening to it, but we want to experience it, right? And a lot of people just can't travel every time the league is on to LA or stuff. Like, we're very fortunate that we do podcasts and stuff. We've been able to attend a couple of events like that, but I feel like most people can't. So when it's coming to their location, they're ready for it. And you could see it in Dallas, man. That arena was packed. Everyone was super hyped. It felt like a real esports event, right? Like that had a fan base. And Dallas Fuel, man, they gotta feel great for themselves because they got to see their fans, man. Like right there, like these are the people who are cheering for you all in one place. The geolocation thing is working out really well. Obviously, all those the fans from Dallas came out to like watch the game. So I don't know, it's really good, and I'm pretty sure that those guys got a boost from that. Like those wins were on the back of their crowd too, because it happens in regular sports too. Like Atlanta, for example, the Atlanta soccer team, Atlanta United, they have their own whole new stadium that was built like a year ago. And every time any team comes plays over here, they're scared shitless, dude. And Atlanta does so well over here because the stadium is always packed and our fans are intense over here. So anything that comes is super intimidated, and it's very rare that Atlanta has lost a game at home. Maybe they've lost like 2 or something like that on the entire league. And I think that is going to happen with these games. I'm hoping that when we come to Atlanta, Rain is also going to do really well with all the cheering it's going to get, because I know that the fans over here are ready, and we got a big crowd too.
Last time the Buffalo Bills played at the Atlanta Falcons, the Buffalo Bills won 23-17. So
I'm not talking about football. I'm talking about soccer.
I play. Nobody cares about Atlanta. All right, was able to look that up in time. As far as my take on the weekend goes, listen, Dallas is such a a terrible city. They can't even keep power long enough to run an esports event. They've got to go off of generators. That's just a slight on the city of Dallas, and it's not the actual event or the organization. I thought those everything within the control of Overwatch League, the Dallas Fuel, was done beautifully. They did a really good job. They even. I'm not gonna lie, I overslept a little bit the first day. The power outage helped me tremendously to catch more action. So no, everything seemed to go great. Joking aside, it was a huge success of an event. Everybody we've talked to that's been there or was part of it or was sending us pictures on Discord had an absolute blast. So props to the Dallas Fuel, the production team, everybody that was a part of what happened there. Did a phenomenal job. If that is an indication of how it's going to go next year when everybody's playing at home, Overwatch League is only going to continue to get more and more fun. So a great job top to bottom. The entire weekend was a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, just watching it, obviously we weren't there, was pretty much everything I wanted it to be when they announced the league. Like, I'm hoping, sometimes you go to, like, my example is at BlizzCon. Anytime I go, sometimes I'll just go and I want to relax, have a drink, and I go watch like a Hearthstone event or something. And like the energy in those live Hearthstone events is just non-existent. There's no one there. No one is really paying attention. Like, most of the people go there just to sit down because they've got long picnic tables and there's a lot of seating space. They usually have drinks there.
The rest area.
And it's nice. Hearthstone, not very hype. They don't really build up the fandom for the people themselves as much. There's some people that people really like, but I've never seen a Hearthstone event, even the finals of any of those events. No one is going crazy for those. There's very little amount. So I'm man, a home game could be really lame. Or if you've gone to I was going to say something that would be maybe taken the wrong way. If you go to a team that's not very good, and they're the Sabres, for instance, 2 years ago, I went to some games, and they weren't very good. The fans were not in it, and the game was fun. I like going to live sporting events. If there's any number of people there, it's fun, but it felt deflated compared to other sporting events I've gone in that same venue. And I'm man, it could be like that. It could be kind of lame. But it was amazing. And I think it was Sideshow that mentioned on the broadcast, someone was we've never been to anything like this. Someone said, oh, we went to Grand Finals. And Sideshow was this is even crazier than Grand Finals, because at Grand Finals, it was an arena divided. But no one was... there was a smaller contingency that was very much in... rooting for London. There was a small contingency very much rooting for Philly, but I would say the majority of people there were just this is awesome to be at, and I don't really
they were there for the event. They were not a huge fan base that had made it over there.
I think the word the broadcast used was hostile. Dallas was a hostile environment. Yes. You didn't go into that stadium wearing a Valiant jersey and get out I don't want to say harassed, but unmessed with, right? You people were talking at you if you were wearing a Valiant jersey that day. And the Houston Outlaws fans got away with it, strength in numbers. It was kind of a shared home game for them on the second one. Had a very different feel. But if you want to know what it's going to be like to have that home game feel, watch that Dallas Fuel versus LA Valiant matchup, because that's what it's going to be like. Because I don't know how many thousands of people were in that arena,
like 4 or 5, I think.
But it was a huge arena, right?
Yeah.
And there was the percentage of Dallas Fuel fans to LA Valiant fans was staggering, and it's a great thing to have happen. It's a difficult thing to play in when you're there, and it's against you. So yeah, I think it's just going to be a lot of fun. But what you said, Blevins, that's why you don't have a bad team, because it'll be that way. If the Washington Justice and the LA Valiant had home games right now, they would be bad. But like the Valiant home games are saved by the fact that like the whole league plays there. So it's not just, and so it's going to be that way if the team's bad, and that's going to make running a successful franchise much more profitable. But that's all good, right? Because your hardcores are still going to go.
Right.
Your people that are like displaced fans of other teams are still going to go, because Lacers in town. I'm going to Toronto whenever Houston plays there, even if I decide to hate Toronto tomorrow. But it'll be one of those things, and it's just going to be better, and it'll give your team a bigger boost. And winning breeds winning. That's a thing, right? And it's a habit. It's habit forming, and there's a million sports cliches out there that people always want to like put down. But like, if you have a team that's always good, and then one year they just don't have a great roster, and going into the year everybody's like, they're just going to be bad, New England. They just aren't, right? Because like the players go out there and the fans don't know any better, and everybody just goes out there expecting to win and thinking they're going to win, and they win. It just kind of happens.
And I mean, yes, I'm sure there are some, early 2000s San Diego Padres stadiums that had shy of 2,000 people in them. But we look at a team like the Buffalo Bills, who arguably in the last, 10 years has not been great. But boy, oh boy, are those fans. I'm right. But boy, oh boy, are those fans die hard and still crazy. You can believe me, the Bills fans still make it a hostile environment, even against a team that has no chance of losing.
Shout outs to Pinto Ron. We needed a Pinto Ron reference on this podcast.
I have no idea what that means, but I'll agree with
Pinto Ron is a Bills fan, Blevins. How do you not know about Pinto Ron? I'm embarrassed you live in the city. Before every single Bills game, he stands in a circle, and people take a ketchup bottle and a mustard bottle, and they just absolutely shower this man in ketchup and mustard.
It's like a tradition or something?
Yeah, Google it. Like Pinto Ron, it will come up immediately. There's no other
like that for Overwatch.
Yeah, there's no other thing. I mean, it's literally every single time, and I'm putting it in chat for you guys to see.
I mean, that is my new goal, is to become, not in the same exact way, but I want to become the Pinto Ron of something. That's my. You need to have that.
Oh, he is drenched. Jesus Christ.
It's every time. There's just a big circle of people. They all stand around and they just cover him. And he runs a tailgate every game.
Is he holding a hot dog in his hands?
He was.
That or like a burger.
Out.
I think it's a burger.
By a t-shirt cannon full of ketchup and mustard. But yeah, I mean, the long story short is I think it was everything I wanted it to be, and honestly a little bit more. There were some talks on Twitter, and I'm kind of seeing that it's not really indicative of what most of the community thinks. I think it's just the vocal minority of people that are, for lack of a better word, butthurt about booing the LA Valiant when they're in an away arena. It's like, there's nothing that shows me more that you've never been to a sporting event in your entire life, or that you just or you're the type of person who unironically says sports ball. Like, okay, cool. Like, Overwatch League is trying to emulate what traditional sports is doing. It's not trying to, it's trying to be something new, right? Obviously with esports, but ask Nate Nanzer. He has a sports background. Everything that he's doing is in the name of traditional sports. That's why there's so much traditional sports investment and influence in the league.
Look, I'll go toe to toe with anybody on the planet hating the Dallas Fuel and making fun of the Dallas Fuel, but how dare anybody tell those fans they didn't have the right to boo the LA Valiant when they
Right.
walked out onto their stage, and if they don't have the exact same attitude and like ownership, the feeling of ownership over the stage, the team, the everything, then like of course they do. That's their team, and they have to be able to do that. That's their home. You don't protect our turf is a big thing in football,
Yeah.
and that's a physical game, but it's the same thing. It's a mental aspect of the physical game.
Mhm.
You don't come into my house and beat me at my game. Okay, that's
Right.
not a thing that happens, and that's the mentality of every athlete whenever they in a home or away environment. Obviously, like tennis is immune from that. Go watch tennis if you don't want to hear people boo. Can't
Right.
even talk in the middle of a point. I'll watch tennis before I'll watch a lot of other sports. But come on now, it's boring in
golf.
comparison
Or golf.
to the golf. Like any sports
It's in the
where
hole!
people need to be quiet aren't real sports. I'm just gonna say it right now.
Yeah, and like the I won't even actually call it a counter argument because it's dumb. But the point that people were bringing up was like, oh well, we already know about mental burnout and burnout in Overwatch League. Why are we exacerbating it? All the reasons we just explained: competitive advantage, like showing your passion for something, like all that. But B, like, okay, I get and I understand and appreciate the fact that the players experience burnout while they're playing, but like, in booing doesn't help that. I'll give you that. Getting booed does not help burnout for sure. But also, I went to a high school that took basketball very seriously. We had a cheer squad that would like go to all of our games, and like it was called the Blue Zoo, and it was like essentially a group of like a few dozen people that would like travel with us and go to all the home games and travel to the games, and like would be like not official cheerleaders but just like fans that would watch us and like do chants and stuff against the other team. There were other teams that did that to us. We got booed. We had all the chants, the "it's all over," the "start your tractors," like all that stuff, because I grew up in a rural area. All that stuff. Like, and here's the thing: when you start playing at that level, the coaches do a very good job, or at least they did for us. Hey, we're going into their house. They're gonna have a group of they're gonna have their own Blue Zoo. They're going to be just as ruthless as the Blue Zoo is. You guys know how bad they are to them. They're going to be just as bad as you. You need to zone all of that out. I played at the Blue Cross Arena for sectionals, which is a big, not a huge stadium, but it's a big stadium in Rochester, New York. There was, a ton of people. All the teams brought their cheer squads. They're like, that place, it's going to be louder than you're used to. They're going to be yelling louder than you're used to. You need to zone all that out because you need to shoot a free throw at the end of the day. The ref's not going to stop the game and tell the crowd to stop yelling at you. You need to just suck it up and play the game, Like, it's not something that's insurmountable. It's not like I got called a bad name from the crowd. The crowd booed me. I am now irreparably damaged. That mentality is not helping the players. Like, trying to maybe counteract that and be proactive about it. Hey, you're going to get booed when you go to Dallas. They're brutal.
It is a boon because in the next season future, every team gets home games. So you're going to have your time. You think those Dallas players this week were sitting there thinking about burnout and how exhausting it is to play Overwatch? No, OGE was literally in tears, overwhelmed by the support from the fans that he was feeling. Like, that was not a stressful weekend for the Dallas School. They went 2-0 in front of their home fans. They're pumped. They're invigorated. They're ready for the stage playoffs. They're, all these things as a result of having those games. To think that it would be a negative from a burnout perspective is, like Blevin said, congratulations on never having participated in a team organized competitive activity in your life. Because like, if you really are a fan of that team, and like if you're bleeding green with me for Houston and you're local to Houston, when those home games come up, you're going to want to do anything and everything you can to help your team win. And if that means boo a bunch of people you don't care about that wear the wrong color shirt that day, like, That's fine with me. Go sit in the arena and tell me it's a bad thing. That's another thing too. Don't be part of the mob mentality. Tell me you're not booing and cheering and screaming and getting just as you need to physically go to one, or you cannot comment to me on whether or not booing should be like your opinion is invalid if you've never been to a sporting event where you have a rooted vested interest in one side.
You know, I agree with you guys. I'm a very mild-mannered person. I'm not a heckler or a booer or anything like that.
Okay, hold on. I want to make one distinction here because I am very well versed in heckling as well, and I am not advocating for specific heckling necessarily, which I have done at college basketball games, and it's extremely funny. But
target them.
I'm just saying my public stance is that. Heckling. But
anyways,
okay,
I was saying I'm pretty mild mannered, but I agree with you guys. Like booing is just gonna be part of the game, at least at that level. And you're trying to promote competition and passion and emotion, and you just can't have it both ways, right? You can't have competition and passion and emotion, and then people just sitting quietly, very respectfully, waiting for everyone to come in. You choose one or the other, right? And like you guys said, like. The players in Overwatch League.
5 maps, though. I just want to see 5 maps. Both these teams are so great. What?
If you don't like booing and you don't like the passion of the sports, just watch Contenders on Twitch. I'm 100% serious. If you don't like booing in esports and you don't like that, you don't like that, just go watch Rocket League. No, Rocket League probably has live crowds.
Yeah.
Go watch.
Rocket League does have a
go watch Tides of Time stream auto chess. There you go. Like it. I'm 100% serious.
But these players need to have the mental fortitude to like embrace that, right? Or like go against that. And instead of thinking like, oh, they're booing me, I'm done. You know what I mean? I'm not playing to my best and stuff. You gotta use that to empower yourself and like turn it against them. Imagine if Valiant had beat Dallas Fuel after the booing and just stood up there proudly like, guess what? You guys keep booing because you just lost, kind of thing. That's the attitude that you gotta have.
Let me tell you, there is very few greater feelings than shutting up a home crowd.
Oh, it's the best.
Yes, exactly.
Deafening silence.
Best.
It's so great. Especially
for
when
me
you beat
personally,
the team on their own senior night and this their last game at home.
For me personally, that was always better than like making somebody look bad in front of their people is better to me than looking good in front of my people.
Yeah.
I remember a tennis match. I listen. I'm just a big old fat guy, and I played tennis in high school, and it had to have just looked ridiculous, but I was pretty good anyways, and it didn't matter. And I got introduced once as team captains and a singles player, and I walk up, and the other team laughed. And I don't necessarily blame them, because to see a large fat man walk up on a court full of skinny dudes playing tennis, I demolished that kid. I'm just like, and I didn't say a word about it. And it was just, I had this moment at the end when I'm just like, hey, when you go back and talk to your buddies over there that were booing, if you need to lie and tell them the score was flipped, that's fine with me. Just make sure you report it correctly. And like kind of that subtle, like, oh, I heard it, but this is only going to go way worse for you than the booing did for me to begin with. It was phenomenal. Like one of my favorite things about playing sports, competitively, was that moment of just they don't like me, they think I'm gonna lose, expectations, whatever it is, whatever the reason. It just to defy that and to shut up all those people that doubted you. That's
proven wrong. You know what I mean? Like the Dallas Fuel fans gave a huge opportunity on a silver platter to LA Valiant. Yeah. Too bad they couldn't take advantage of it. But you shouldn't be trying to shut that off. Like that is what breeds competition, right?
I will make the bold claim that the booing and the passion and all that is the essence of what Overwatch League is trying to be. That is the edge that Overwatch League has over the other esports. It is what brings us into the world of being more like traditional sports. It brings us to legitimacy more than anything else that Overwatch League does. It's not the sponsors. It's not the home and away teams inherently. It's not the being owned by the crafts. it's the passion that is incited by the fans of the team organically and in a way that they recognize.
Absolutely, because I bet that everyone in that arena, even if they were not into Overwatch, even if it was the first time they were watching an Overwatch game in their lives, they were probably having a good time.
Absolutely. All right, that was a nice little rant to go on, breaking up the monotony of going over Overwatch League matches. Not really. We'll get right back into it. A real quick recap as we go into our. This is the last week of the stage. Am I wrong? No,
Yep.
this is the last.
No, you're right.
The last regular week of the stage here. So we'll go over the standings that we have as it sits right now. The LA Gladiators have come out 6-0 and are in first place right now with a plus 12 map differential. San Francisco Shock are in second place at 5-0 with a staggering plus 20 map differential.
The maximum is plus 20, by the way.
Yep.
They've not dropped a map all stage.
San Francisco Shock, as close to perfection as it. What?
Stop it. Stop it right now.
As close to perfection as they possibly could be. Vancouver Titans also sitting at that 5-0 mark, but with only a plus 16 map differential. NYXL sitting, I think, as low as they've ever been at this point in the stage. At fourth place at 5-1 plus 15. London Spitfire up next, also 5-1 with only a plus 12. Dallas Fuel 4-2 with a plus 3 map differential. Hangzhou Spark also at 4-2 with actually a minus 3 map differential. And rounding out the stage playoff cutoff as it stands right now is the Seoul Dynasty at 3-2 with a plus 6. We then are followed by Shanghai Dragons, Chengdu Hunters, Philadelphia Fusion, Boston Uprising, Atlanta Reign, Paris Eternal, Los Angeles Valiant, Toronto Defiant, Guangzhou Charge, Washington Justice, Houston Outlaws, and Florida Mayhem rounding out the bottom of the charts right now. So yeah, definitely. I don't know who's mathematically in or out right now, but I can say Florida Mayhem and Houston not going to make it in.
Justice are out, Guangzhou's out, Toronto's out, Valiant are out. You're going to have 3 wins in order to make it from what I'm seeing. Maybe 1 4-win sneaks, or 4 loss, I should say. Yeah, loss.
Right.
I think basically we're talking about Boston up. Boston, Philly, right. Chengdu, Shanghai, and they're fighting with Seoul, Hangzhou, and Dallas for what are probably the only open spots. Mm-hmm. I think London, New York, Vancouver, San Fran, and the Gladiators are all pretty well penciled in, ready to go for this round of the stage playoffs. And let's see, Seoul's a tough one. Their map differential is really, really good. So if they win one, they're probably just going to be in, just kind of comparing their map differential to the other ones. So, yeah, maybe there's 2 spots that are really, really up for grabs, and then 3 or 4 that could possibly be, but probably.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be hoping for a super draw like we usually are, but after how the actual draw was handled last stage.
Yeah, let's just have it figured out.
Let's just clean cut.
As soon as the games are done, please.
Clean cut. But before we talk, let's break it on down. Starting on Thursday, we've got the Dallas Fuel versus the Florida Mayhem. I don't think there's going to be much disagreement in this one. I've got Dallas 4-0. Iplay, who do you got?
I got Dallas 4-0 too.
Sweep it.
Any insights to be brought here? Is there even an inkling of a chance that Florida pulls out anything?
Dallas is playing great. Their coaching staff is playing great. They're coming up hot of their home games. Mm-hmm. Florida Mayhem is just Florida Mayhem. I just don't see it happening.
I wish Bare Hands was in the chat so that this ironic comment would have a little bit more meaning. But listen, there's irons in the fire for Florida, okay? Things are on the up. They might put out a blog post this week. You don't know. That could push them up. No.
I think their chances of winning are in the Florida Mayhem. Next up, we've got...
Boo! I forget what episode it is, so some of my boos are delayed. But there you go.
Definitely, yeah. I definitely deserve to be booed for that. Next up, we've got Philadelphia Fusion versus the untouched San Francisco Shock. I'm predicting they're going to remain untouched. I've got San Francisco 4-0. Deathblow, we'll start with you. Who do you got?
I think one of these maps is winnable for Philadelphia, so I'm going to give it a 3-1 for San Francisco. They're too hot. I like the map. They've already got the map record. I guarantee you they don't actually care about that anymore. Maybe it's like a rallying cry or something, but no, I think Philly's good enough to take a map from them. I'll predict it 3-0.
I play. Who do you got?
3-1.
I'm going 4-0 in this one. Philly's a good map. I could believe that they can take a map off of San Francisco Shock right now, but man, San Francisco is just playing at a whole nother level right now. Like those guys are tight. They're not making mistakes. They're not forgiving anyone who stands in their way. And they're the closest to just taking out Vancouver and Titans, which it doesn't even have their same record. Granted, their stage has been a little easier than it was last time. This is probably going to be their hardest match of the stage.
Yeah. And San Francisco has looked good since before even the stage playoffs of stage 1. And we don't really have a reason to believe that San Francisco has the good Philly, bad Philly effect that Philly has. But yeah, no, I'm picking a clear San Francisco win here. Up next, we've got the Guangzhou Charge versus the unwinnable Houston Outlaws right now.
Not wrong.
At least in this stage. I mean, it's really tough to pick Houston to win.
How can you? I'll rip the Band-Aid off. 3-1 Guangzhou. That's my pick. Listen, Houston is shooting themselves in the foot, and instead of going like, ow, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore, they're just reloading and firing again straight into their foot over and over again. Don't worry, Flame. Maybe someday you'll be right. Like, if you just keep running this same comp for the next 6 years of Overwatch League, maybe eventually you'll have a roster that can do it, but you don't, so stop, please. Never mind. Just do whatever you want, because I can't wait for you and Tyrong to both be fired, and the new people can run my team next year. That's basically where we're at right now.
Hashtag Deathblow for GM.
The state DB4GM. Hashtag DB4GM. But yeah, no, in all seriousness,
I'm
yeah,
100%
like,
serious.
they are just going all in on this GOATS comp because Flame talked about how good Clockwork was at demecking divas. It's last year all over again for me. Let's not sign a Tracer player. Let's double down. You don't understand. You're not a professional Overwatch League coach or player, so you couldn't possibly understand that you're just supposed to run GOATs, forehead. Meanwhile, the entire rest of the league runs bunker defenses, DPS compositions where they need to for their roster, and they've won this stage. But no, Houston's not going to do that, so they're going to lose here 3-1. Iplay, you have a different score, and I should stop talking. What do you got?
I gave Houston more of the benefit of the doubt. I have him losing 2-1 versus the Charge. I think they might tie a game. They might win one map. You never know. I definitely don't see them winning. They're on a bad streak right now. The players seem really down on themselves. The fire is gone in Houston. Like that flame has to extinguish, and somebody has to come
Hopefully
and light it back up.
flame gets extinguished pretty soon too. But I will say they've got a real shot at winning King of the Hill as long as they never lose a team fight, because they roll out 3 DPS. But as soon as one player dies, everybody switches to GOATs. So as long as they never lose a team fight on King of the Hill, they've got a real chance to win that map.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not picking Houston here. I got Guangzhou 3-1.
Yeah.
No. I don't claim to be a pro. I'm
going to be wrong on Houston once this week. I'll do it later.
I don't claim to be a pro player or pro coach, so I'm not going to get into the intricacies of it. But from a conceptual level, we talked about it ad nauseum as to why I disagree with the philosophy that's going on. But moving on to Friday, we've got the Boston Uprising versus the LA Gladiators. LA Gladiators has been untouched this stage, and I'm keeping them that way. Give me LA 4-0. I see a little spice in here, in your pick here. Who do you got?
So Gladiators are looking amazing this stage, but I think it's mainly because of the people they've been going up against. Not to discredit them, they've been playing really well, but they haven't really been challenged this stage. Their biggest challenge was Seoul Dynasty, and that was a close game. It's not like they just ran away with it. And Boston is just the king of reverse sweeps. Boston is probably the most resilient team in the league, in my opinion. Like, when they're up against the wall, they don't lose faith, and they find a way fusions, is an amazing player to be in that kind of position. So I'm giving this one to Boston. I think that is going to be a really close match. That's why I have it at a 3-2. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard after seeing Boston just not lose this stage. There's so many teams that they should have lost. I'm giving it to them.
Deathblow, are you also jumping on the Boston train after you just booed them?
No, why would I root for the devil? Why would I pick the devil to win against a perfectly good team that's yet to lose? I can't do it. No, Boston, I think they're a streaky team, and they're streaking in the wrong direction at the moment for me. It's been a little while since they had that map 5 winning streak or whatever. Even to call it like a winning streak, they only got 2 wins on this stage. They had to involve stage 1 matches in order for it to like actually be like a, you know, longer than like, hey, we won 2 games close. So no, I don't think. I think Boston's coming back down to earth into more a little bit what we kind of expected them to be, which is more of that middle, like lower middle pack, maybe a wild card contender, but probably not more than that. And right now, Gladiators just seem to have things figured out. So, Gladiators 3-1.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Next up, we have. I'm trying to make references without spoiling anything. We have the battle for Winterfell, the battle of the North, the battle for Canada. We have the Toronto Defiant versus the Vancouver Titans. Toronto, admittedly, not having their best stage. Vancouver still has yet to lose. Deathblow, who do you got in this one?
I mean, Vancouver's going to win, and probably 4-0, but honestly, Toronto could steal a map or keep it close. We've seen Vancouver let teams stick around and stay in pretty late. Toronto's good enough to be the one that upsets. They could be the Atlanta Reign to Vancouver's New York Excelsior this week. It's certainly possible, but it's nothing you bet on or predict. I was going to say something, and I can't because we don't want to spoil it. So, Iplay, who do you got in this one? Save me.
I'm giving this one to Vancouver, too, obviously. Toronto is a GOATS team, but they're going up against the best GOATS team. And I just haven't seen Vancouver kind of like perform really well in anything else that's not like pure GOATS. And they play it decently, but when you're going up against the best of the best, it's just no chance there.
Well, I mean, it's undeniable that Vancouver is an amazing team right now. But give me Toronto Defiant. They're going to defy the odds here. Give me Toronto 3. The King of the North!
King of the North!
You know what? We've talked about it before. We've got sports magic. You know, I'll make this open statement to Toronto Defiant. If you're listening out there somewhere, do not follow in the footsteps of Flame and the Houston Outlaws. Because you know what? Their philosophy of if you want to be one of the best teams in the league, you have to beat the best team in the league doing that. Wrong. No. Do something crazy. Play loosey-goosey because you know what? Teams, when you got nothing to lose.
0-5, by the way. That philosophy is 0-5, so don't
right,
do it.
Right. When you've got nothing to lose and only things to gain, like just try something. Throw a Hail Mary, you know. Man, there's so many good Game of Thrones metaphors I could use.
I've thought of like 17, and it's really a shame we don't have we need like a special show weekly where we just are allowed to make Game of Thrones references just for the next couple of weeks where it's like, it's okay.
Yeah. That's what we need. But
King of the North, I like your pick.
King of the North.
I won't do it to my own pick'ems, but I'll yell King of the North with you.
I will do it, and you know what? I will be going crazy
time.
When Toronto wins this 3-2. Next up, we've got Shanghai Dragons versus the Shanghai Dragons of this stage, Washington Justice, or of this season rather. Man, it still is weird to me to ever pick Shanghai to win, but I got Shanghai 3-1. They're clearly the better team, at least in this season. Iplay, who do you got?
Well, once he unmutes his microphone, he can go, but I'll go first for the time being. And I will take the Shanghai Dragons 3-1 here. Washington did add some pieces. I'm hearing Ark might be sick, so I think his status is kind of iffy. There were people tweeting to get positive vibes sent his way or whatever. I don't know, fancy voodoo people are trying to do to make the guy healthy. So that could factor in, but I think Sleepy is going to have a little more time with this team now. It should be good for a map win, but probably not ready to beat Shanghai. Janice is still their tank, so I play.
I'm picking Shanghai too. I gave him a 3-2. Like you said, I think Washington might have had some more time to get their stuff together. So they might take 2 maps. They're not going against the best team, but Shanghai Dragons of this season is not Shanghai Dragons of last season. They're a very solid, like mid-tier team. They're not the best out there, but they, like, you can't let your guard down against Shanghai Dragons anymore. Like they play good.
They're better this stage than they were last stage, let alone this season compared to last season.
And don't let me confuse anyone. I don't actually think they're as bad as they are. It's just like a part of me just feels weird because I'm so used to it. Oh yeah, Shanghai gonna call it a loss.
To quote Jonah Hill from Superbad, people don't forget.
It's gonna take him some time to overcome that reputation because, man, that was a horrible season they had last time. But they're slowly amending it.
Yeah. For sure. Up on Saturday, we have the London Spitfire playing off against the Houston Outlaws. London did get beat pretty, not pretty badly, but they did lose to Chengdu last week. They did crush Paris, but coming off of a loss to Chengdu would maybe make me a little bit leery about London, but they're going against Houston, who is not in the best shape right now. So give me London 3-1. I play. Who do you
going against Houston, who they've never beaten in the history of their franchise.
Just like Houston had never lost to Dallas Fuel either. Just putting that out there.
Dallas Fuel are a better team than the London Spitfire at this stage. No, London's seriously inconsistent. I feel like London's a team that battles themselves more than they battle their opponents. Yeah. And they you could see it in some of the production material. Like, they were made fun of last year for not being able to beat Houston. Like, there were teams taking shots at them for it in the interviews and things like that. I think it's in their head a little bit. Also, I wouldn't be me if I didn't pick Houston at least once. So in the spirit of just hating, listen, Ikariam complained I wasn't here last week when my mom was in the hospital. He complained when we recorded the episode a day later. So I'm picking the Houston Outlaws to defeat the London Spitfire 3-2 this week. We can't all agree on everything.
I like it. I
went through to the opposite way. I'm giving it to London, but I can definitely see it going both ways. Like you said, London is just so streaky right now. I mean, I guess they've always been very streaky. Yeah. But I don't know. Like you said, they have a reputation for not being able to beat Houston, and Houston has got the upper hand of them every single time they've gone against each other.
And London was usually favored last year too. Yeah, London was usually favored last year too. For what it's worth, my heart wants me to pick Houston. My head says Houston's beating themselves more than London could possibly beat themselves. That's like the actual pick here. But yeah, take that, Ikariam.
I like it. Speaking of things that will certainly enrage me, Atlanta Reign go up again against NYXL after having just.
So what? This is
what happened last time, Blevins?
We're getting to play the same team twice.
Yeah,
it's happened a lot this season.
Yeah, it's happened at least a few times.
In theory, I loved it, but now that it's happening, I kind of hate it. But Blevins, do these teams have a history? Could New York have history with an expansion team like this? What's happened in the past when New York played Atlanta?
I don't care what's happened in the past because you know what? They're making stage playoffs regardless. That's all that matters. Hey, we're making stage playoffs so that we can lose in the stage playoffs.
Do you know what happened in the past?
I don't know what happened. No.
So hold on. Do I got to look it up because Blevins doesn't seem to want to talk about it?
No, I don't want to talk about it. What I do want to talk about is the fact that regardless of what may or may not have happened in the past, NYXL coming back strong. Give me a 5-0 NYXL.
I don't know about this one. I'm obviously giving it to Atlanta because they're my guys. I gotta believe in them. They did it once. They could do it again. Honestly, they look really strong against New York Excelsior last time. I was so prepared to walk into a loss that day, and I was happily surprised that it was not even a contest. It's like 3-0 right off the bat. It's like, whoa, we just won against New York Excelsior. We did lose the last map.
Wait, Blevins, so they beat the New York Excelsior the last time they played?
These matches in the middle of the stage.
What happened?
It doesn't matter.
Oh, jeez.
None of it matters.
New
don't
York's
care.
clearly
That-
a mess right now.
That being said, New
So they're
York was
sandbagging.
a little iffy that last match. Like they just looked tilted to me for some
Yeah.
reason. I don't know if it was like Dogman killing Jonak a couple times that kind of like threw him
Dogman
off
is
a little bit.
he sprinkles a little bit of sports magic in there. He's like a Christian Leitner, where he's talking smack the whole time. He's getting in people's heads.
Yeah,
And now he has the bowl
definitely.
cut. How can he's powered up to a bowl cut status?
Last time we also played a lot better. We did really good, like versing them. Like our matches look really solid, our retreats look really solid. Baby Bay was looking a lot more cohesive with the team. So if we can keep it up and we can win this again, it's like, man, that at least the stage won't be completely lost, right? Like I don't know if Atlanta's gonna make it to playoffs at this point. Their record is looking a little shaky since they lost a friend. They had to rework the team in the middle of the stage. But this could salvage it to the point where at least we come up with some points so that hopefully we can make it up in this stage to come.
DB, who you got?
Wait, so it's hard to pick it because if I'm hearing this correctly, the last time they played, the Atlanta Reign defeated the New York Excelsior 3-1. So if we look back at the history of NYXL, we'll see that they've lost random games throughout almost every stage last year. They didn't have a winless stage.
Literally every stage.
This isn't anything new. On occasion, they don't show up. They just don't produce like you expect them to. They're always back in action the next week. Give me NYXL 4-0 here. Sorry, I play. It's a classic trap.
No,
Good fun.
I can see that happening, but I have faith, man. I have faith in my boys.
See, that's the
I
same...
used to too. Your season, you've got season 1 death blow written all over you with your Reign, with your Reign fandom. I just feel so bad for you right now because I know it's coming.
That's the mentality that I need for Toronto because they're going up against insurmountable odds against the Vancouver Titans, and they just, you know what? Just play your game. Just play your game.
Play your goats game.
No, play a different game. Play.
To be fair, both Toronto and Houston not doing very hot right now.
The King of the North. That's all I know.
Speaking of the not King of the North, we've got Seoul Dynasty going up against Thanos in Vancouver Titans here. I think especially after Vancouver loses to Toronto, which is definitely going to happen regardless of what facts or logic may tell you, they're going to be going into Hulk mode even though they're Thanos, and they're going to crush the Seoul Dynasty 4-0. DB, who do you got?
I'll take Vancouver 3-1 here. Seoul's playing pretty well. They're like a budget version of themselves with the roster they're playing at the moment, but it's kind of hard to argue with the results. At least in the main tank conversation, I could see them wanting to be, tactically different and like strategically different. But start playing Fleta if you want to be able to beat teams.
All I'm saying is just trade Fissure to Toronto. That will make make my dreams come true.
Then we'll make the playoffs and he'll bench himself and we'll be doomed.
It'll be great.
And then you'll have 2 teams eliminated in the first round of the playoffs.
So what's the thing with Fisher, dude? Because like, here's the thing: every time he plays, everyone's like, "Oh my god, one of the best tanks out there in the world." But every team he gets to, he gets benched. That can be a coincidence.
Well, I think he benched himself at the Gladiators. I think he's probably arrogant. We talked a lot about the Fissure effect and how it doesn't have to be a positive thing for the Seoul Dynasty going into it. Yeah. It does massively affect their upside and what they're able to do because Fissure is mechanically one of the better main tanks in the league. But from a teamwork perspective, there seems to be a lot lacking there. Again, how you can come to the agreement as a team and as an organization that Fissure was not the correct play and that iRemix needed the tank for the Gladiators in the playoffs last year just tells me Fissure looked him dead in the face and said, "I'm not playing for you. You got to find, use somebody else." And then the immediate trade kind of supports that. So I think he might be kind of a toxic presence in the locker room, but I think in this instance, why he's not playing now is more the case that, listen, he is super hyper aggressive in the way he plays the position. Right now, they're having success playing a more moderated, people like to call it the NYXL style. You let the attack come to you and then you counter it. But if we ever got into a traditional dive meta or maybe a more DPS focused meta where aggression from the main tank was maybe the more ideal strategy, then I think you just see him again. So I think this is Seoul kind of bouncing around and using different styles from their different players. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's working, so I can't complain too much. This isn't Sato versus Fraggy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This
And
is
honestly, both styles work really well because I
Yeah.
mean, you watch Bumper. He's a very aggressive main
Yeah.
tank, and it works really well with his team. But then go watch Super. Super is one of the most conservative main tanks I've ever seen in my life. That guy plays so carefully and so premeditated. You almost never see him being in out of position or in like, oh, what is he doing there kind of thing. He's always kind of hanging in the back and waiting for his opening to come out, and he works really well too. I think Marvel is doing a fantastic job for Soul Dynasty, and right now they're looking like a top 5 team.
He is, and I think personally, I think the better pick for kind of like passive main tanks is Mono, and I think everybody would still have NYXL and Vancouver 1 and 2 in their rankings. The order is interchangeable, I'm sure, but you know, you've got one that plays the aggressive and one that plays the defensive. Either can work, but I think Soul, at least, you know, their coaching staff, whatever, and hard to argue with it when it's working. Like I said,
Right.
they want to be playing that defensive style. That means Marvel instead of Fissure. So
For sure. Next up, last match on Saturday, we've got the Chengdu Hunters versus the LA Valiant. I'm still in the LA Valiant has descended to the level of I mean they have gotten a couple wins this stage, but I'm still not sold on them quite yet, especially coming off of the demoralizing losses at the Dallas homestand. Give me Chengdu 3-1.
Valiant aren't a good enough team to really upset what Chengdu's going to do. So I think Chengdu's going to go in there. They're going to play their unique style. They're probably just going to be able to roll with it. I don't think the Valiant will be able to figure it out on the fly. I don't think they're that put together with their new head coach. So I do lean the Hunters here 3-1. Iplay, who do you got?
I'm actually going for the Valiant, and I don't know why, but like something keeps telling me that this team is not as bad as like everyone makes it out to be. Like, yeah, they had a really rough start. Right now, they're not performing good. But if they are gonna have a chance to win against somebody, I think it's the Hunters, and it's for the same reason that you actually mentioned it, Deathblow. I think because they actually don't have to go goats against them. I mean, they might and still, but you actually might get to free agilities from the brick jail. You know, let him loose, let him play the DPS that he's so good at. And maybe they don't have to play the meta that has been kind of like bringing them down a little bit. So I don't know. I might see the Valiant winning this one, but it's really up in the air. Valiant is really wishy-washy right now.
Yeah, it's really tough for me to pick Valiant at least at this point. But I do agree with you. I do think they're underplaying what their potential is.
It's a similar power level on the two teams. So I agree with you. What I play there for sure.
Definitely. Rounding out the week, we start Sunday with Toronto Defiant versus the Paris Eternal. I'm sticking to my guns of not picking Paris to win another game this stage. I'm also sticking to the guns of, after just such a monumental victory against Vancouver Titans, really turning this season around for Toronto, they're certainly going to be able to beat a team like the Paris Eternal. Give me Toronto 3-1.
Yeah.
DB, who we got?
It's Paris versus the Kings in the North. Look, of course It's going to be Toronto here. I've shouted that far too many times to pick against them, against Paris.
True.
Toronto's a good team that's struggling, and I think the Paris Eternal are a below average, mediocre at best kind of a team. Just roster construction. Hopefully the time off for Toronto, I am 37, literal Jon Snow of Overwatch League, is... just at full power, full strength, unsheaths Long Claw and is able to take him down. So, I'll go Toronto here. Who do you got?
I'm going with Toronto as well. I don't think there's much to say here. I agree with pretty much with everything you just said. Paris is bottom tier right now.
Just yell it. Come on, you can do it. King of the North!
There we go.
It's King of the North, but we'll let it slide.
King of the North! You just gotta kind of yell it so that you can't really tell what we're saying.
Right.
These last ones we're all in pretty much lockstep agreement here, so we'll go through these ones pretty quickly. We've got Washington Justice versus Boston Uprising. I think there's just a tier level difference here. Give me Boston 4-0.
3-1.
I play anything else here? You got any different opinions on this one?
No, I think Boston is pretty decent and can make quick work of Washington. Boston is not like the top team right now, but they are a team. They play together
Yes.
really well, and going against anyone who's not playing like that is just lost cause.
They definitely field 6 players.
Yep. We've got Shanghai Dragons versus San Francisco Shock. I mean, this one, there's nothing to say here. This is easy. San Francisco 4-0, right?
Yeah, I think we all agree on this one.
Yeah.
It's a shame I ended their perfect map record earlier in the week because 4-0 for all of us.
Yeah. And the last match of the week we have here is Seoul Dynasty versus Hong Zhao Spark. I've got Seoul here 4-0. DB, any difference? Anything to talk about this one?
No Fleta, no 4-0. That's my rule. 3-1. That's it.
Fair enough. I'm going 4-0 too. I think that Seoul has it in them. They're playing really well right now. And Hangzhou, I don't know. They're volatile, I feel. Like they come up with some cool strategies, but they do make quite a few mistakes here and there. And I think that Seoul will be able to exploit that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to start talking about the future for Hangzhou basically going forward. I think it just doesn't seem like it's coming together for them.
Yep.
But maybe in a DPS meta, who knows?
Yeah, and I think this meta was kind of a almost like a damping, had a damping effect on a lot of these teams that had a lot of really strong potential going in. But that's going to bring us to the end of the episode, boys. Had a nice little long one here. Iplay, thank you so much again for coming back on. I think we had some
my pleasure.
We had some great discussions on here.
Yeah, that was fun.
But before we go, Iplay, do you want to plug your stuff? Where can people find you? What do you do? All that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to keep listening to me talking about all this stuff, you can always catch me on Omnic Lab or Owl Recap, which actually will be going live a little bit later tonight. And you can also find me on Twitter at Iplaigames. You spell that IPLAI Games.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on again. We always like to get you on. I know your work schedule is a little more hectic nowadays, but we always like to have you on this show as well as around the payload and all that.
I'm glad we could make it work this week. Yeah, I missed this little discussion.
It's always fun. DB, any last minute stuff before we head out? It certainly must not be that important.
Yeah, not super important. But no, I'm just disappointed. You guys don't. You guys hate Fleta, and you just give Soul the 4-0 like that without him.
I do love Fleta, but I don't know. They've been working well.
I don't care if Soul does the right thing or not.
I like Blevins' answer the most there. Yeah, I just don't care about Fleta.
It's not that I hate Fleta. It's just that I just don't care.
No, thanks so much for joining us, Iplay. Always a pleasure.
Yes, but guys, that is going to be it for the episode. Again, make sure I'll put all the links to iPlay's stuff in the description below. Make sure you check that out for sure. But for Iplaigames, for Deathful, I am the Blevins, and remember, guys, it's high noon as I find the button to press.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
All right, King of the North on 3. 1, 2, 3. King of the North!